Welcome to the garage, ladies and gentlemen. I'm here, Gary's here, Pete's here, and I'm glad you're here. Our Thursday morning posting of the Court of Public Opinion from the garage. Don't forget, tomorrow we'll be certainly there on air at 9 a.m. Now, if not decided already, the Libs will decide, we are told, today, on their net zero policy. It is unbelievable that it has taken this long. There is nothing to decide. Net zero is nonsense, not achievable. Do you know what would have to to achieve net zero? Every living thing would have to stop breathing. You know, this is so ridiculous. Every swamp would have to be filled in because those wetlands and swamps and deltas, they emit greenhouse gases. Net zero? Nonsense. Last Tuesday, let me think, last Tuesday, November the 9th, it was the anniversary of the Berlin Wall coming down. I remember mentioning it to you in the posting. 1989 was the year, the symbolic end of communism. Socialism. Don't know the difference between the two. Really? Socialism is communism with a smile. Something like that. Anyway, that was the end of it, the USSR. It's dead, I know, but it just won't lie down. All those Eastern European Warsaw Pact countries. I don't know that I can remember them all. Poland, East Germany, Hungary, Czechoslovakia, Bulgaria, Romania, Albania. I'm sure I haven't got them all, but you get the picture. There were a lot of them. Suddenly free from socialism. Have you seen one of these countries return to socialism? Of course not. In fact, they're all joined up to NATO. If you've lived in the awful grey, repressive, tyrannical world of communism, why would you go back? You wouldn't. And in any case, logic tells you, or should tell you, if it was so good, you wouldn't have to build a wall around the country to stop people from leaving, would you? But many risked their lives and did just that. Communism, well, this is how I think of it. It's the equal distribution of misery. Capitalism, while not perfect, is the equal distribution of opportunity. Now, why I mention this, it is not just the anniversary of the end of the USSR. New York, the very capital of capitalism, has just elected a socialist to run the city. Zoran Mamdani. He's young, he's in his 30s, 34, I think. He's a Muslim, a supporter of Hamas. Now, I doubt if any of the escapees from Eastern Europe, and there are many in New York, of course, and the over 1 million Jews in that city, doubt if any of them would have voted for him. By the way, apart from Tel Aviv, New York is the biggest Jewish city in the world. Over 20 million people were eligible to vote in that mayoralty election. 20 million were eligible, 2 million did. 2 million. Not what I'd call a mandate. Unfortunately, it seems that socialism is once again on the march. Even though there's not one piece of evidence that it works, as Margaret Thatcher said, socialism doesn't work because they run out of other people's money. So why would Britain head in that direction? Parts of America, France, other places in Europe, Australia? Why would we head in that direction? Anthony Albanese, elected twice, popularly elected, and he had a very good mandate last time. I think he's got a 90-seat majority. He is from the socialist left of the Labour Party, and at university a former president of the Communist Party. Jacinta Allen, Premier of Victoria, also from the socialist left. Most every state in the country is Labour. It seems the one thing we learn from history is that we learn nothing from history. The Whitlam government got this country into terrible trouble. Terrible trouble. Have we learned nothing? It starts in the schools, I believe. The teachers were indoctrinated as kids, so they in turn preach the same nonsense to our kids today. Then there's the media. Journalists seem to me to be much more inclined to be Labour. The national broadcaster, what can I say about that? Not much. If these guys found themselves in a socialist society, they would be denied the freedoms that we provide and they enjoy. They wouldn't be able to speak out as they speak. People ask me, why do I think the way I think? I get that a lot. I can tell you now, lived experience. Lived experience, it's simple. Reward and incentive instead of fear and force. Much better. It produces innovation and wealth. Think of all the advances enjoyed by mankind, produced mostly by capitalism, the West. The least worst system of all the systems. Not perfect, as I said before. In reality, all we can ask for is an opportunity. Then the rest is up to us. Sure, luck's involved, but the harder you work, the luckier you get. Think of something good that came out of the Soviet Union. Maybe talk to me on Friday about it. I can't think. Oh, I can. As a system of government, sadly, I can think of one thing they produced, and that's the Kalashnikov, the AK-47, invented by Mikhail Kalashnikov it was 1949. Even today, the most preferred weapon for terrorists. Very reliable. What else could I possibly think of? There was the Lada. I remember it won the Wheels magazine Square Wheels Award when it was brought into the country. And then there was the, what was it? The East German two-stroke plastic Trabant.
Trabant.
What was it called? The Trabant?
Trabant.
The two worst cars ever produced.
What?
How they ever got a space program together, I have no idea.
Mind you, we came up with the Zeta.
Oh, well, that's a washing machine. Oh, dear, dear. You have to have a sense of humour, ladies and gentlemen.
He who cast the first stone.
The government's expanded minimum 5% deposit for first home buyers. No means test, by the way. I can't believe that. In the first months, nearly 6,000 people took advantage of it. 1 in 10 sales, I'm told. In that same month, real estate prices rose 1.1%. The biggest monthly increase in prices in 2 years. Now, if that continues, that would make an annual increase of more than 13%. 13%. Labour said, and I'll quote, "The 5% deposit scheme will not result in increased house prices." Look, it's so obvious to anyone with half a brain. If you introduce a scheme like that, you will of course stimulate demand. And without increasing supply, prices have to rise. How about that? Labour sees a problem, and they can't help but make it worse. Weird. Don't get it. Let me talk to you about this COP thing, because they're planning one for here next year, the Brazilian COP 30. I believe it's been exposed as the travelcade that it really is. There, in Brazil, after having cut down great swathes of the Amazon to host 40,000 delegates, there to save the planet, a waste of time and trees. Ladies and gentlemen, without the US, China, Russia, India, there you have 2/3 of the world's great emitters. Not there. Not interested. So what is the point? You're basically talking tourism and travel. Nothing to do with the environment. In fact, you're damaging the environment. And there are still people here who want one of these stupid COPs in Australia. Adelaide, as I said, COP 31 next year. But at least the Premier is up front. He says, $1 billion? Well, $1 billion, but think of the hotels and the restaurants and the state on display to the world. Look, cake and circuses. With respect, sir, that's rubbish. A total waste of money and time. The successful, enterprising countries will not come. They are too busy employing their people and earning money. Common sense has surely died. In fact, Rosalie LeVincent and Marcus sent me something about that, which I'd love to read you if I have the time. Okay. This is the obituary for common sense. It was published in London. Obituary in the London Times. I wondered where he had gone. An obituary printed in the London Times, February 7, 2014. Today we mourn the passing of a beloved old friend, Common Sense, who's been with us for many years. No one knows for sure how old he was, since his birth records were long lost in bureaucratic red tape. He will be remembered as having cultivated such valuable lessons as life isn't always fair. And maybe, just maybe, it was my fault. Common sense, lived by simple, sound financial policies, don't spend more than you earn, and reliable strategies like adults, not children, are in charge. His health began to deteriorate rapidly when well-intentioned but overbearing regulations were set in place. Reports of a 6-year-old boy charged with sexual harassment for kissing a classmate. Teens suspended from school for using mouthwash after lunch. And a teacher fired for reprimanding an unruly student only worsened his condition. Common sense lost ground when parents attacked teachers for doing the job that they themselves had failed to do in disciplining their unruly children. It declined even further when schools were required to get parental consent to administer sun lotion or an aspirin to students, but could not inform the parents when a student became pregnant and wanted to have an abortion. Common sense lost the will to live as the churches became businesses. Criminals received better treatment than their victims. Common sense took a breather when you couldn't defend yourself from a burglar in your own home, and the burglar could sue you if you tried. He would sue you for assault. Common sense finally gave up the will to live after a woman failed to realize that a steaming cup of coffee was hot. She spilled a little in her lap, launched a lawsuit, and was promptly awarded a huge settlement. Common sense was preceded in death by his parents, truth and trust by his wife, discretion, his daughter, responsibility, and by his son, reason. He is survived by his 5 stepbrothers. I know my rights. I want it now. Someone else is to blame. I am a victim. And pay me for doing nothing. Not many attended his funeral because so few realized that he had gone. If you still remember him, pass this on. If not, join the majority and do nothing. Oh boy, I'm out of time. Happy birthday if you're having a birthday. This Thursday, we've got a full house on Friday, by the way, around the dining room table tomorrow. A great show. Packed to the rafters, you might say. November 13. Oh, false fingernails were first sold. Can't imagine there being a great market for that, but anyway. 1952, false fingernails. First sold. John Montagu, the 4th Earl of Sandwich, British statesman who claimed to have invented the sandwich. The story goes that he was a great gambler, and he would stay at the gambling tables all night, and he would just ask somebody to get him a couple of pieces of bread with a piece of meat in between, and that was the beginning of the sandwich. Lord Sandwich. Whoa. Okay. Born in Cheswick, England. Died 1792. Born this day in 1718. A letter is written by Reverend Mark R. Watkinson. Petitioned the Treasury Department to recognize Almighty God on American coins. The department eventually decided on the motto, "In God we trust." Still there today. That was in 1861, on this day. The world's earliest winemaking, uncovered in a clay pot in Georgia, 6000 BC, uncovered in 2017. The world's earliest winemaking. Clay pot. Kamal! Why are people so unkind? I don't think he's terribly well these days, but anyway, Kamal, 1937, Australian singer, The Elephant Song. Sounds of Goodbye was the one I liked. He had a good voice, a lovely voice. It was like John Law's, lovely voice. Born in Kuala Lumpur, 1937, lived here in Adelaide for a long time. 1789, in a letter to Jean-Baptiste Leroy, Benjamin Franklin writes, "In this world, nothing can be said to be certain, except death and taxes." Jean-Baptiste Leroy. Okay. Sonny and Cher performed together for the final time, I Got You Babe, last night with the David Letterman Show, 1987. The great bell of Big Ben first chimes at the foot of the still unfinished clock tower outside the Palace of Westminster, 1856. Ronald Reagan announces his candidacy for the US presidency in New York City in 1979. 1986, US President Ronald Reagan confesses weapons sales to Iran. The Iran, what did they call it? The Iran-Contra scandal. Prime Minister of Australia, Billy Hughes, is expelled from the Labor Party over his support for conscription, 1916. Robert Louis Stevenson Scottish novelist, Treasure Island. The Strange Case of Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, born in Edinburgh, Scotland, died 1894, born this day in 1850. And one more. Steven Spielberg makes his first feature-length film debut with the made-for-television movie. Does anyone know what it was called?
No.
Duel.
That truck thing.
It was the truck,
Yeah.
and no dialogue. It was just sheer suspense, sheer suspense. And the guy who was in the car being pushed by the truck, do you know who he was?
No.
Dennis Weaver.
That's right.
Dennis Weaver, who was the guy with the limp in Gunsmoke. Yeah. The wonderful world of the movies, ladies and gentlemen. Do join us tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock. We'll have a lot of fun. Thank you so much for being with us. I'm Jeremy Cordeaux. Believe in yourself, and goodbye from the Court of Public Opinion.